Okay. See, today what we will be discussing about is the respiration in plants. What you can see in the backdrop is a plant, okay, and you can see that leaves are liberating oxygen. So respiration in plants, it takes place. Maybe they do not have a respiratory system like we have, a nostril, uh, then the nasal cavity, trachea, bronchioles. Okay, all those they might not be having. But plants, they undergo respiration and they have the cellular oxidation. Okay, the cells are contact in the surface, so they can easily undergo cellular oxidation. Even in leaves, so their diameter is so thin that they can easily undergo diffusion. So by a through diffusion process itself, the respiration is fulfilled by plants. When compared to animals, the respiration in stem, leaf, and plants is slower, and it doesn't require uh, large amount of respiration. It does not take place as in case of animals. So respiration is by throughout the plant body they undergo respiration. There is no specialized organ and organ system as you notice in case of animals. So respiration is by simple diffusion. Okay. Now you might say, sir, some of the stems are too thick. How will they be able to undergo diffusion? See, even in those thick stems with secondary growth, you find at the center, the xylem would be dead, isn't it? So the xylem part is dead. So they are not in any way involved in, they don't require any respiration to take place, whether it is duramen, heartwood, or the sapwood, they don't require the respiration to take place. Only the bark part of it, even in the bark part, you find that uh, most of the tissues are dead. So the cells that they require in case of stem, how do they undergo respiration? By lenticels. In case of secondary wood, they have this epidermis ruptured at various points. So through this lenticels, they undergo respiration. In leaves, it is through the stomata. So through stomata and leaves, the opening of it, they undergo respiration. Even roots undergo respiration. That is the reason in garden you should frequently loosen the soil. So loosening the soil around the roots, it helps in better aeration. Okay, so the gardener would usually do that. Okay, so the stem, leaf, everything undergoes respiration, and since all the parts of the body they undergo respiration, and there is no transfer of gases from root to stem or other things. They do not take place. There is no transfer of respiratory gases. It is directly by diffusion of the surface of the plant that is exposed to the atmosphere. So for them, the oxygen deficiency doesn't arise during daytime because they are undergoing photosynthesis and oxygen is being liberated. So only during the night time when photosynthesis is less, they have to depend upon the surrounding oxygen for their respiration process. So the plants do undergo respiration. Then there is also photorespiration, which you studied in the previous class, wherein whenever the atmospheric concentration of oxygen is more and carbon dioxide concentration is less, so the plants, instead of undergoing photosynthesis, they undergo photorespiration, where there is no synthesis of food. So it's a waste process. You already know about that, wherein they are during photorespiration. So glucose is broken down into the photophosphorylate, photo glycerate, and photoglycolate. So those products we had discussed in the previous class. So let us now understand the respiration process in plants step by step. And in this chapter, what you're going to study is, so you are going to study the first step would be the hydrolysis of food substrate, where in food substrate, it can be carbohydrate. Majority of the time it is carbohydrate, but sometimes the plants also have the food substrate as fats, proteins, or organic acids. Even they have to undergo hydrolysis to form simple compound glucose. Now, respiration in plants, the complete process of photosynthesis took place within chloroplast. But in respiration in plants takes place in case of the cytoplasm also they undergo respiration, So because the glycolysis process takes place in cytoplasm, because they have all the enzymes required for glycolysis in cytoplasm. Now the Krebs cycle and the terminal oxidation, or the last step of respiration, which we also call it as ETS, electron transport system, or terminal oxidation or oxidative phosphorylation, they take place in the Racker's particle of mitochondria. So all these are taking place. So there is the respiration, glycolysis takes place in cytoplasm, Krebs cycle and terminal oxidation takes place in mitochondria. Unlike photosynthesis, which took completely in chloroplast. Okay. Only when photosynthesis takes place and food is synthesized, that food can be oxidized to liberate energy. So without the food substrate, the respiration cannot take place. So photosynthesis and respiration are interdependent. See, only when photosynthesis takes place, the food molecules are synthesized, and that food molecule are oxidized during respiration process to release energy. This energy is utilized for the various metabolic activities of plants. So you should understand these basic concepts. So we'll be studying about this step by step. Let us begin with the first part of it. So here, this is a cell part of it where you can notice the mitochondria is there with outer membrane and inner membrane. Inner membrane has finger-like folds called as cristae. So within the in between the cristae, you find this matrix. Okay, so let us understand about this process. See, what is respiration? It is the oxidation of food materials. The oxidation of food materials. When we are talking about oxidation of food material, it implies breaking up of carbon to carbon bonds of complex molecules like glucose within the cell to release energy for ATP synthesis is called cellular respiration. So oxidation of food materials within the cell to release energy for ATP synthesis is called cellular respiration. So this is the definition of respiration. The oxidation of food within the cell to release energy to synthesize ATP, release energy for ATP synthesis, it is called as cellular respiration. So this energy, that is ATP, is used for absorption, transport movement, reproduction, breathing, etc. So this energy that is obtained is used for absorption, transport movement, reproduction, breathing, etc. in case of plants. So the overall reaction of respiration in plants is glucose plus 6 molecules of oxygen. They are going to give rise to 6 carbon dioxide plus 6 water plus 36 ATP molecules are formed. Since this is taking place in presence of air, so we call it as aerobic respiration. In absence of air, it is going to just release 2 ATP. In presence of air, they are going to release 36 ATP. So the definition of respiration is oxidation of food materials within the cell to release energy for synthesis of ATP. It is called as cellular respiration. The energy which is synthesized, that is the ATP which is formed, it is used for the absorption process, active transport, movement, reproduction, and even breathing mechanism. These energy is utilized. This ATP is utilized. This slide, you should understand the interrelationship between photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Ultimate source of food that is respired is photosynthesis. So the ultimate source of food that is respired is photosynthesis. So the through the photosynthesis, the food that is synthesized, it is uh, respired, and they are oxidized by cellular respiration, and ATP is synthesized, 36 molecules of ATP, and the water and carbon dioxide, so that is released, is taken up during the process of photosynthesis. Okay, so this is how they are. The source of food for cellular respiration is through photosynthesis. See, the compounds which are oxidized during respiration, we call it as respiratory substrates. I told you already it can be carbohydrate, it can be lipid or organic acid or fats or proteins. Okay, compounds that are organized during, that are oxidized during photo respiration, they are called as respiratory substrates. Usually it would be glucose, whether they are carbohydrate, protein, fat, or organic acid. They should be simplified in the form of glucose, which can enter into the glycolysis process. So compounds that are oxidized during respiration, we call it as respiratory substrates. Examples are carbohydrates. Most common is carbohydrates, glucose. Then it can be proteins, fats, and organic acids. See, the energy released during respiration is not used uh, directly, but it is used to synthesize ATP. See, the energy released by the breakdown of food, it is uh, not used directly, so but it is used to synthesize ATP. See, the our body can recognize energy only in the form of ATP. So directly the energy that is released from the breakdown of food or oxidation of food, it is not utilized by the plant body or in case of animals. So they are utilized, the energy that is released by the oxidation of food, it is utilized for the synthesis of ATP. So when energy is needed, ATP is broken down. Hence, ATP acts as the energy currency of the cell. So the energy would be that is released during the oxidation of food substrate or respiratory substrate. It is utilized for the synthesis of ATP. And whenever energy is required for plant or animal body, so ATP is broken down and energy is released during that time. So hence ATP is going to act as energy currency of the cell. So in all the living organism, ATP is the energy currency of the cell. So for respiration, plants get oxygen and they give out carbon dioxide. So for respiration, plants get oxygen and give out carbon dioxide. In plants, gaseous exchange, they occur through stomata and lenticels. So you can see this stomata through this, the gaseous exchange takes place. And lenticels, they are small openings because of the rupture of epidermis in the stem. So these are the lenticels. Through the lenticels also there is exchange of gaseous exchange. Okay, that is oxygen gets inside and carbon dioxide is liberated. For respiration, plants get oxygen and give out carbon dioxide. In plants, gaseous exchange occurs through stomata and lenticels. Lenticels are formed on the secondary wood. So they are formed by the rupture of epidermis. So we have studied the structure of lenticel already. So just remember about that. Through stomata and lenticels, the gaseous exchange takes place in plants. So why plants do not need any specialized respiratory organ? See, each plant part takes care of its own gaseous exchange needs. So gas transport is very limited. Each plant part, like say leaves, it takes care of its own gaseous exchange need. It is not dependent upon other organs. Like in case of animals, the blood is going to transport the respiratory gases, isn't it? So from the lungs, the blood is uh, going to be purified there in the lungs, and there is exchange of respiratory gases. The oxygenated blood carries oxygen to each and every part of the cell. There are no such complications in case of plants. Each plant part, they can take care of their gaseous need. Like flower petals, they can take care of their gaseous needs by direct diffusion. So there is gaseous transport is very limited. Unlike in case of animals, the gas need not have to be transported. So the respiratory gases need not be transported, unlike in case of animals in plants. So in plants, there is no requirement of transport of gases. Okay, because each and every plant part take care of its own gaseous exchange needs. Gas exchange is very low as compared to animals. Okay, so when compared to animals, their metabolic activities are also higher. They have locomotion and movement, so they require more amount of gaseous exchange is required in case of animals than in case of plants. So leaves are adapted for maximum gaseous exchange during photosynthesis. During this, oxygen is released within the cell. Even they need not have to look out for oxygen during daytime because one of the byproduct of photosynthesis is oxygen. So leaves are going to be adapted for maximum gaseous exchange during photosynthesis, especially carbon dioxide is required in maximum during daytime. And during the process of photosynthesis, oxygen is released within the cell. So the requirement of oxygen is fulfilled within the cell during photosynthesis. So most of the living cells, whether it is the mesophyll or parenchyma, they are all having contact with the air. And if you look into parenchyma, they are all loosely arranged. So they have a lot of intercellular spaces through which the diffused gases can enter through. So most of the living cells, they have contact with air. They are located close to the plant surface. The living cells are located close to the plant surface. In stems, living cells are organized in thin layers beneath the mark. So in stem, the living cells are organized in thin layers. They have a thin layer beneath the bark. They also have lenticels. Okay, so here you can see the cut part of the stem. Okay, you can notice them having this loosely arranged tissues. So in stems, living cells are organized in thin layers beneath the bark. They also have lenticels. Okay, they're also having the lenticels. So you have to understand that. In leaves, stems, and roots, parenchyma cells are loosely packed and that provides interconnected air spaces. So when the parenchyma cells are loosely packed, they have intercellular spaces that provides the interconnected air space. So you should understand about that. So in leaves, stem, and roots, the parenchyma cells are loosely packed, which provides interconnected air spaces. So that is the reason the plants do not require any specialized respiratory organ. Okay. The complete combustion, that is oxidation of glucose. So the complete combustion of glucose yields energy, most of which is given out as heat energy. That is why respiration is a combustion process. So just like any fuel burning in a bike, I told you in the previous class. So fuel burning in a bike during which energy is liberated and a lot of energy is lost as heat energy. So similarly, it happens the same in case of the oxidation of glucose. We can also call this respiration process as biocombustion. So the complete combustion of glucose or burnout of glucose yields energy, most of which is given out as heat energy. So glucose plus 6 oxygen, they are going to form 6 carbon dioxide, 6 water, 6 molecules of water plus 36 molecules of ATP plus heat energy is liberated. Okay, this energy is utilized to synthesize other molecules. So energy, most of which is lost as heat energy, the ATP that is synthesized is utilized to synthesize other molecules. Okay. So this reaction gives the overall step, but you should add up here energy ATP and minus heat energy. Okay, so energy here is ATP, that is 36 ATP. The energy, some of which is lost as heat energy. For this, I told you an experiment to understand how the heat energy is liberated during respiration. So what you can do is overnight you soak the seeds in a wet cloth. So for sprouting, so sprouts, to obtain sprout, your parents, your mother would have done that at home, isn't it? So they would have tied the seeds in a wet cloth early in the morning. Overnight they would have left it. Early in the morning you might have noticed the seeds which would have germinated. Especially the green grams are faster in germination. Okay, so and when you feel the cloth early in the morning, it would be warm. It wouldn't be wet or cold, it would be warm. Why is it warm? Because during the respiration is maximum during the germination of seed. As a result of germination, when it takes place, the respiration is more, and the during the respiration process heat energy is lost. That is why you feel the cloth warm early in the morning. Okay, or you can have a thermo flask and you can insert a thermometer. So before germination, so in the thermo flask you have seeds, like green grams would be better, and you add up some water to it, okay, so that the germination process can take place. Note down the initial temperature before the germination takes place and after germination. There would be a difference in temperature because during the germination process maximum respiration takes place. When respiration is taking place, some of the energy is lost as heat energy. That heat energy is the reason for the warmth that you feel, or the change in temperature that you notice in the flask. So heat energy is lost. Okay, so remember about this simple experiments to notice the heat energy. I had even told you, when we breathe in air, when we are inhaling, you can feel that the air is cool and it enters through our nostrils and trachea. But when you are exhaling out, just feel on your hand when you exhale it out, so it would be warm. So even we are losing out our energy, certain amount of energy as heat energy during respiration. That is the reason respiration is considered to be a combustion process. Even in fuels, whenever the fuel is burnt in a bike, okay, so during the running of the engine, so the engine and our surrounding parts, they get heated up. That is because of loss of energy in the form of heat energy. So you should understand these processes that is taking place in respiration, not only in plants but even in animals. There is loss of energy in the form of heat energy. Certain loss of energy takes place, but at the same time, the combustion of glucose, it results in energy being synthesized. So during the glucose catabolism, okay, this entire process, respiration, is a catabolic process, isn't it? Where a complex organic molecule is broken down into simple molecules like carbon dioxide and water. Glucose is broken down by oxidation into simple molecules like carbon dioxide and water. So it is a catabolic process. So it's a breakdown process. That is why we are using the term glucose catabolism. During the glucose catabolism, not all the liberated energy goes out as heat. Glucose is oxidized in several small steps. Okay, so glucose is not suddenly burned to form six carbon dioxide, six water. Several steps are there, like they undergo glycolysis, they undergo Krebs cycle, then finally the energy rich molecules which are formed, they undergo terminal oxidation, or we also call it as electron transport system, or we also call it as oxidative phosphorylation. So this is what is taking place. So during glucose catabolism, not all the liberated energy goes out as heat. So glucose is oxidized in several small steps. It enables some steps to couple released energy to ATP synthesis. During respiration, oxygen is utilized and carbon dioxide, water, and energy are released. So during the respiration process, oxygen is utilized and carbon dioxide, water, and energy are released. So it's a very slow process. Glucose catabolism takes step by step. As I told you, it takes up in glycolysis, it takes place in Krebs cycle or citric acid cycle, then finally terminal oxidation. So glucose is oxidized in several small steps, and it enables some of the steps to couple released energy to ATP synthesis. During respiration, oxygen is utilized and carbon dioxide and water are released. Certain organisms are adapted to anaerobic conditions. Okay. Anaerobic conditions in the sense, in the absence of oxygen, they can undergo respiration. Some are facultative anaerobes, others are obligate anaerobes. What do you mean by facultative anaerobes? See, in presence of oxygen, they are aerobic organism. In absence of oxygen, they are anaerobic. Yeast is a very good example for facultative anaerobes, but others are obligate anaerobes. So they are going to be compulsorily, they are anaerobes. Like in case of uh, the lactobacillus bacteria or acetobacter, they're all compulsory anaerobes. They can undergo respiration only in presence of in absence of oxygen. So some are facultative anaerobes and others are obligate anaerobes. So anaerobes are organisms which undergo respiration in absence of air. Some of the organisms are facultative anaerobes, the others are obligate anaerobes. So I told you about yeast. Yeast is in presence of oxygen, they undergo aerobic respiration. In absence of oxygen, they undergo anaerobic respiration. That is the reason during the preparation of wine, what we do is we add yeast to this grape juice, okay, and we close the casket and it is airtight so that no oxygen enters. Okay, so during this process, initially the yeast would be undergoing aerobic respiration. Still, the oxygen is there within this airtight casket filled with grape juice and yeast. Later, what happens is when the complete oxygen is exhausted, the yeast undergoes uh, anaerobic respiration. And during that process, glucose is broken down as ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide is liberated. See, anaerobic respiration, I told you only two ATPs are released. Okay, so ethyl alcohol is formed and there is release of carbon dioxide and also only two ATPs are formed. Whereas in aerobic respiration, breakdown of single glucose leads to 36 ATP formation. Now you understand that the wine is prepared and they are also carbonated because the carbon dioxide is liberated, especially if you take a degree level biotechnology. So you are going to prepare wine. So I had helped my students. That was the final year project of it. So sixth semester. So wherein we helped them in doing this lab experiment of preparation of wine. And once wine was done, divine juice, we had also had to taste it. Anyway, it was alcohol concentration was more because I had many slip of tongues after that taste of that wine. Anyway, so remember, this is how in the uh, alcoholic beverage industries they use this anaerobic organism. Yeast is one of them, so which is used for uh, the preparation of wine, beer. So they are all facultative anaerobes. In presence of oxygen, they are aerobic. In absence of oxygen, they are anaerobic. Obligates are whether oxygen is present or absent, they are anaerobic. They do not utilize oxygen. Okay, so they are anaerobic organisms. So they can undergo respiration only in absence of oxygen or without utilizing oxygen. So the next important step after the hydrolysis of food substrate, so they are broken down into the simplest component. The food substrate might be carbohydrate, protein, fat, organic acids, whatever it is, they are broken down into the simplest component, glucose. Now they enter into an important step, glycolysis, or we also call it as EMP pathway. Glycolysis takes place in the cytoplasm of the cell. Why should it take place in the cytoplasm of the cell? Glycolysis takes place in cytoplasm of the cell because all the enzymes which are required for the glycolysis process, they are present in the cytoplasm. So since all the enzymes required for this glycolysis process is present in the cytoplasm, glycolysis takes place in the cytoplasm. So we also call it as EMP pathway. What does EMP stands for? Emden, Mayerhof, and Paranas pathway. Name of the scientists: Emden, Mayerhof, and Paranas pathway. So glycolysis is also called as EMP pathway, Emden, Mayerhof, Paranas pathway. Okay, so that is what you have to remember regarding the glycolysis process. These three scientists were awarded Nobel Prize for their work on this glycolysis process. So it has helped us to understand the respiration process in much more better way. So glycolysis or EMP pathway. What is glycolysis? It is a partial oxidation or breakdown of glucose to form two molecules of pyruvic acid in the absence of oxygen. It occurs in the cytoplasm of all the living organisms. It's not just in plant. In all the living organisms, they undergo this process. Whether they are aerobic or anaerobic, they undergo glycolysis. So many times they have asked in NEET. So glycolysis process occurs in aerobes, anaerobes, both aerobes and anaerobes, only aerobes. So the answer is both aerobic and anaerobic process, they undergo this glycolysis or EMP pathway. Okay, so the glucose which has entered into the cytoplasm, so they undergo glycolysis to form two molecules of pyruvic acid. So glucose is 6 carbon, pyruvic acid is going to be 3 carbon atoms. So two molecules of pyruvic acid in the absence of oxygen. See, oxidation definition, you should remember it as oil. What is oil? Oxidation is loss of electrons. So that is why it is called as oil. Oxidation is loss of electrons. So oil process, that is also called as oxidation. Then the next one is oxidation is removal of hydrogen is also called as oxidation. Addition of oxygen is also called as um, oxidation. So these are the definitions of oxidation, just like a RIG, RIG, that is reduction is gain of electrons or addition of H plus or removal of oxygen. We call it as reduction process. So always in chemistry, whenever we are using the term oxidation and reduction, remember it can mean any of these. When I'm saying oxidation, it is addition of oxygen or removal of hydrogen, or it is loss of electrons. Oxidation is loss of electrons. So the during glycolysis, it is a partial oxidation without the involvement of oxygen. Okay, it is a partial oxidation or breakdown of glucose into two molecules of pyruvic acid in the absence of oxygen. There is no involvement of oxygen in this process. It occurs in cytoplasm of all living organism. So glycolysis occurs in the cytoplasm of all the living organism, whether it is aerobic or anaerobic. So they undergo this. See, the aerobic respiration is also called as fermentation. The the anaerobic respiration is also called as fermentation. Okay, so alcoholic fermentation, lactic acid fermentation, acetic acid fermentation, they're all taking place in absence of oxygen. They're all anaerobic process. So now the pyruvic molecules that are present, if you look into this slide, so glucose within the cytoplasm, they undergo glycolysis. They have put this arrow mark to indicate many intermediate steps are there, which we have not discussed. Finally, one molecule of glucose, they are going to form two pyruvic acid molecules. This entire circle represents the glycolysis process or Embden-Mayerhof pathway. So the pyruvic acid molecules, they enter they can be processed. After that, they can either undergo fermentation or aerobic respiration. In aerobic respiration, so this pyruvic acid is carried into the mitochondria. There, they are acetyl coenzyme A, they are going to form, and that acetyl coenzyme A enters into the citric acid cycle. So during the citric acid cycle, they are going to form energy rich molecules, and that terminal oxidation takes place in the cristae. So this pyruvic acid or pyruvate is a fork in the metabolic road because it branches, either it can take up the anaerobic respiration or it can take up the aerobic respiration. So that is why pyruvic acid molecule is called as a fork in the metabolic road. So dash is called as a fork in the metabolic road. So it is pyruvic acid or pyruvate ion is a fork in the metabolic road. So remember about that. See, the glycolysis scheme was given by Gustav Emden. So this scientist, Emden, Parnas, and Mayrhof. So Gustav Emden, Otto Mayrhof, and J. Parnas. Okay. So it is also known as EMP pathway. So in anaerobes, it is the only process in respiration. Glycolysis is the only process in respiration. In anaerobic organism, glycolysis is the only process in respiration. So the scheme of this glycolysis was given by Gustav Emden, then Otto Meyerhof, and Jacob Parnas and Otto Meyerhof. So these three biologists, they gave this glycolysis process. They worked on this glycolysis process, and that is why we also call glycolysis as EMP pathway. Yeah, the glycolysis process is the only step in respiration of anaerobic organisms. Okay. In plants, glucose is derived from sucrose. So you know that food, the translocation of organic solutes takes place in the form of sucrose. Sucrose, we also call it as cane sugar. So sucrose, they are going to be broken down by an enzyme invertase to liberate two molecules, which are isomers of each other, that is glucose and fructase. Okay. In plants, glucose is derived from sucrose, which is the end product of photosynthesis, or from storage carbohydrates. So sucrose is converted into glucose and fructose by an enzyme sucrase, or you can also call it as invertase. So these two monosaccharides readily enter the glycolytic pathway. See, glucose and fructose are isomers, so they have the same molecular formula, but structural formula are different. So you might have studied in the chemistry, they are isomers where they have the same molecular formula, but structural formula are different. Okay. So these two monosaccharides, glucose and fructose, they can easily enter into glycolytic, the glycolysis pathway. So glucose and fructose, they are phosphorylated. That is, they are added with phosphate to form glucose 6 phosphate by the enzyme hexokinase. So the first step in the glycolysis process is, so glucose is phosphorylated, that is, the addition of phosphate takes place in presence of an enzyme hexokinase. It is then this glucose 6 phosphate is then converted to fructose 6 phosphate. If fructose is there, they are directly going to form fructose 6 phosphate. So if glucose 6 phosphate is formed, then in presence of an isomer enzyme, they are isomerized to form fructose 6 phosphate. The subsequent steps of metabolism of glucose and fructose are the same. Once they are formed fructose 6 phosphate, the steps are all same. So it's the glycolysis include 10 steps under the control of different enzymes. So ATP is utilized at two steps. That is, glucose is converted into glucose 6 phosphate. In the conversion of fructose 6 phosphate to fructose 1,6 biphosphate, two ATPs are utilized. ATP is utilized at two steps. Okay. And the fructose, once it is formed, 1,6 biphosphate, it is split into phosphoglyceraldehyde and dihydroxyacetone phosphate, DHAP. So they are isomers. So the phosphoglyceraldehyde is oxidized and with inorganic phosphate. So the phosphoglyceraldehyde is oxidized and with inorganic phosphate, they are converted to 1,3 biphosphoglycerate. So they are converted into 1,3 biphosphoglycerate. During this, two redox equivalents two H atoms are removed from PgAl and transferred to NAD plus. So NAD H plus it becomes. NAD, you should understand nicotinamide adenosine dinucleotide. So nicotinamide adenosine dinucleotide. So during this, two redox equivalents, that is 2H plus is removed from phosphoglyceraldehyde and transferred to NAD, and they are going to form reduced NADH2. So the biphosphoglycerate becomes 3-phosphoglyceric acid, yielding energy. This energy is trapped for the formation of ATP. Okay, that is in the seventh step. ATP is also formed when phosphoenol pyruvate converts to pyruvic acid. So they have formed 3-phosphoglycerate. From here, they have to convert to phosphoenol pyruvate. So So ATP is also formed when phosphoenol pyruvate converts to pyruvic acid. They are losing phosphate, which gets added up to ADP, and there is a formation of ATP. So therefore, in glycolysis, so four ATP molecules are directly synthesized from one glucose molecule, and pyruvic acid or pyruvate is the key product of glycolysis. So there is two molecules of pyruvic acid formed from one glucose. Its metabolic fate depends on the cellular needs, whether it is anaerobic or aerobic. So that is based on the cellular needs. So we'll go by into the step itself, the overall reaction. See, glucose is a 6 carbon compound. So they undergo phosphorylation. Glucose forms glucose 6 phosphate. Again, it's a 6 carbon. So when they have to form a phosphate, the phosphate is obtained from ATP in presence of an enzyme exokinase. So they are losing a phosphate group which is taken up by glucose to form glucose 6 phosphate. 6 represents the sixth carbon atom has this phosphate. That is what it represents. So glucose 6 carbon is going to form glucose 6 phosphate, and they take up a phosphate group from this ATP. ATP is broken down, and that phosphate is utilized for the formation of glucose 6 phosphate. It takes place in presence of exokinase. Glucose 6 phosphate, which is a 6 carbon, it transforms itself into fructose 6 phosphate, which is again a 6 carbon. So there is no change in molecular formula, but structurally they have changed. It is in presence of an isomerase enzyme. Glucose 6 phosphate is converted into its isomer fructose 6 phosphate. Fructose 6 phosphate, they are going to get again one more phosphate by the breakdown of ATP. Okay, so these are the two steps where ATP is utilized. Okay, ATP is spent, there is expenditure of ATP, and this takes place again in presence of exokinase. So fructose 6 phosphate becomes fructose 1,6 biphosphate, which is a 6 carbon. Now this fructose 1,6 biphosphate, which is a 6 carbon, they break down to form 3 carbon atoms in presence of an enzyme aldolase. They break down to form 3 carbon atoms. Okay, so the 3 carbon atoms are triose phosphate, so that is 3C phosphoglyceraldehyde. It is a 3 carbon atom. Another 3 carbon atom that has been broken down by fructose 1,6 is DHAP. We call it as dihydroxy acetone phosphate. Now, dihydroxy acetone phosphate, it is an isomer of phosphoglyceraldehyde. So they also get converted into phosphoglyceraldehyde. Okay, by the isomerase enzyme, dihydroxyacetone phosphate also gets converted into glyceraldehyde, phosphoglyceraldehyde. So there will be now two molecules of phosphoglyceraldehyde. So two molecules of phosphoglyceraldehyde, they lose their the hydrogen molecules from phosphoglyceraldehyde, and they are going to form two molecules of phosphoglyceric acid. So that is biphosphoglyceric acid. So two molecules of phosphoglyceraldehyde. So they lose this uh, the protons or hydrogen, and that hydrogen is gained by this NAD plus, which becomes NADH2, or you can also call it as reduced NADH, okay, which is an energy rich molecule. Now they are going to form this so they are going to form the 1,3 biphosphoglyceric acid. So one inorganic phosphate is also added to this phosphoglyceraldehyde. Not only they lose this hydrogen, but they also are gaining inorganic phosphate. So from one phosphate, they become two phosphate. That is how the product would be 1,3 biphosphoglyceric acid. Now this 1,3-biphosphoglyceric acid, so they lose the phosphate and that phosphate is taken up by ADP. So there is a synthesis of ATP in this process. So they become 3-phosphoglyceric acid. They lose the ATP. So two ATPs are synthesized because these molecules are two in number. And also remember the total number of carbon atoms is 3 carbon. Even here it is 3 carbon. So they form 3-phosphoglyceric acid. So 3-phosphoglyceric acid in presence of mutase enzyme, they are going to form 2-phosphoglyceric acid. Okay. So the position of this 3-phosphate is changed to second carbon. So they are going to form 2-phosphoglyceric acid. So again, there is a loss of water and phosphoglyceric acid. They are going to form phosphoenol pyruvic acid. So they are going to form phosphoenol pyruvic acid, which is again a 3 carbon and there are two molecules. So now you find these, they again lose this phosphate and finally they are forming this pyruvic acid, two molecules of pyruvic acid. So whereas this phosphate gone, they have got added up to ADP. ADP plus this phosphate, they are going to form ATP. Totally two ATPs are synthesized here, two ATPs are synthesized here, two NADP, NADH2s are synthesized. Okay, totally four ATP are synthesized and two NADH2 are synthesized. How many are spent? 2 ATP. So 4 ATP minus 2 ATP is 2 ATP. Overall, in glycolysis step, you find that there is synthesis of 2 ATP and 2 NADH2 and two molecules of pyruvic acid. So the end product of glucose after going through the glycolysis is two molecules of pyruvic acid, two molecules of ATP, two molecules of NADH2. So that is what is happening during the partial oxidation of glucose during glycolysis or the EMP pathway. So this glycolysis is taking place in cytoplasm of the cell. Why is it taking place in the cytoplasm of the cell? Because all the enzymes required for this glycolysis is taking place in the cytoplasm. Okay, is present in the cytoplasm. Now, this pyruvic acid that is formed, they have to be shifted to or transferred to the mitochondria for Krebs cycle to take place. So further reactions cannot take place in cytoplasm. So this pyruvic acid molecules are transferred from cytoplasm to mitochondria, and during this process they lose this two ATP molecules. They spend this two ATP molecules for the pyruvic acid molecule to be transferred from the cytoplasm to the uh, mitochondria. So two ATP molecules are utilized. So that is why we get, even though overall ATP synthesized at 38 ATPs, since two molecules are spent for transferring this pyruvic acid to mitochondria, we say the entire respiration 36 ATPs are formed. We don't use that 38 ATPs. In old textbooks, if you look into, they provide the information as from a glucose during respiration 38 ATPs are formed. But at present, since we have this information that pyruvic acid molecules have to transfer from cytoplasm to mitochondria. For that, the two ATPs are utilized. So total ATPs formed during respiration of glucose is 36 ATP. Okay. In glycolysis, total ATP formed is 2 ATP and 2 NADH2 are formed. Okay. This is the overall reaction of this glycolysis.